Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday service for this week. My name is Rebecca, if you don't know, and I'll be the MC today. So, I hope everyone had a good week despite the circumstances. And this is the order of service. So we'll start with the opening song, bow and pledge, invocation prayer, Peace TV, our sermon by Rev J, benediction prayer, closing song, and announcements. So we'll start with our opening song, which is performed by the Yamadas. So feel free to sing along at home, but maybe keep your mics muted. Alrighty, enjoy.
We shout, rejoice, we rise and sing the will of God is done. And your day dawns and your dream lives. The Son of God has come. Fight bravely to crush Satan, 'cause power will be revealed in the children of our Father, the youth of harmony. The darkness which has covered us in Him has been dispelled. The dawn breaks into daylight. We ring the morning bell. 30 billion shall live in the bright light of truth. Let us rise and march forward with harmony of youth. That's true. Heavenly road, we march against our foes. The command comes and the world goes to our true mother's own. Beaming light unto the nations, we carry high our dream. Let us midnight for our Father, we youth of harmony.
Alrighty, thank you to Hayri, Yuna, Yumi, and special appearance by Sara for that very adorable performance. Okay, so let's offer a half bow to our Heavenly Parents and true parents, just at the computers, I presume. Okay, so sorry, I forgot. Kyungbae, Baro. Okay, and then we'll recite family pledge number 8. Number 8, our family, the owner of Chonoguk, pledges having entered the era of Chonoguk to achieve the ideal of God and human beings united in love through absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, and to perfect the realm of liberation and complete freedom in the kingdom of God on earth and in heaven by centering on true love. Okay, and please join me in prayer. Dear beloved Heavenly Parents and true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, we thank you so much for this beautiful day that you've given us all, this beautiful Sunday. I pray that despite the circumstances and for those in Sydney being locked down, I pray that we can really come together via the internet to share in heart and share in love and to connect to you as we would any other Sunday. So I pray that we can really offer this day to you and that we can really maintain our hope and faith for the future, and that we can follow and trust in you always, and that we can maintain our strong bond in this community so that we can support each other and share in your love. So I pray that you can be with us always and that we can really return all our heart and all our love to you. So I'd like to offer this in my name, Rebecca Bell, bless second gen, Jew. Alrighty, and let's all enjoy Peace TV for this week.
Hello dear members and welcome to another edition of HPHC Global News. Last Sunday, June 27th, the second Peace Festival of the Heavenly Parents Holy Community was successfully held with the theme, You Are Heaven's Joy. In this edition of HPHC Global News, we will go into detail about this festival, an event designed to create a new witnessing culture. We will also feature a special item on Hyojong Special Encounters, a lecture tour by Dr. Yoon Young-ho to the 5 sub-regions of Korea, aimed at raising awareness of the vision of a heavenly unified Korea. The second Peace Festival of the Heavenly Parents Holy Community ran at the Chunwon Church under the theme, You Are My Joy. The Heavenly Parents Holy Community planned 5 of such events on the themes of blessing, joy, gratitude, happiness and determination. And the second festival of last week was on joy. The festival was broadcast live via the PeaceLink platform and was attended by more than 400,000 peace-loving citizens, transcending language and border barriers. It highlighted the culture of the era of Heavenly Parents Holy Community.
여러분, 오늘 이 평화 축제를 통해 6천년 만에 본연의 부모를 만나는 가장 기쁜 날이 되기를 진심으로 기도합니다.
Dr. Yoon Young-ho opened the festival with words of welcome and a beautiful song to thank the participants. An artistic exhibition combined the performance of a magnificent orchestra, a worship and dance group, depicting India's storyline, the creation, the fall, and restoration, as well as the joy, sorrow, glory, and praises for God. The first event of the festival was entitled Who is the Mother of Peace and consisted of a video that testified to true mother's devotion to bring to God and humanity original joy, followed by testimonies of important personalities.
하늘 부모님 송해 회원들이 누리고 있는 지금 행복은 그 어머님이 만드시는 거 아니냐 하는 그 생각 때문에 미래가 밝고 기쁨으로 넘치고 있다라고 저는 생각을 합니다. 어머님이 계셔야 또 건강하셔야 정말 북한과 같은 그 어두운 곳에 밝은 빛이 비칠 거다. 어머님 따라 갑시다. 고맙습니다.
This was followed by a performance by the Little Angels of Korea, and the second part of the event was a search for the answer to the question, Who is God, our Heavenly Parent? The second part made us aware and conscious of God as the Father and Mother of humanity, and that thanks to true parents we can restore our relationship to the Creator. Such were the contents of prominent religious leaders' testimonies.
한학자 총재님은 하나님께 받은 화평의 사명을 가지고 평화를 사랑하며 인류의 눈물을 닦아줄 수 있는 평화의 어머니입니다.
The way we can bring joy to God, our Heavenly Parent, is by joining together with the Mother of Peace to bring the world together as one family.
한학자 총재님께서는 이제 인류의 참 부모님이신 평화의 어머니로서 인류 평화와 세계의 평화와 실현을 위하여 부처님의 가피가 영원하길 바랍니다.
Accompanied by the beautiful Hadam Chonsa choir of the Taego Order of the Korean Buddhism, transcending religious beliefs, praising love for the human family and bringing joy to God. The theme of the third part was centered on the question, Who am I? A search for our true identity. The audience was moved by testimonies of international families dedicated to live for the sake of others and to form true families, being an example to society and a joy to God.
우리 부부가 세상에 참된 기쁨이 되기를 늘 다짐하며 기도합니다. 하는 부모님을 사모하듯 남편을 더 같이 사랑하며 꼭 군대 갈 그나들과 동생이 우리 대한민국의 자랑스러운 미래가 되고 저의 부부처럼 아름다운 축복 가정을 이룰 수 있도록 사랑으로 교육해 나갈 것입니다.
All the love and joy of this day were lifted up to God through the beautiful stage that brought together Yute Pyongyang, the Little Angels, and the Peace Choir. The audience, now aware that they are truly sons and daughters of God, longed for the speedy realization of a world of peace and happiness. Through video messages, international leaders of Heavenly Parents' Holy Community applauded the Second Peace Festival. And Mrs. John Wonju McDavid and General Director Yoon Young-ho gave flowers and handkerchief to a couple of new members' representatives. At the same time, people in the hall also welcomed new members and wished them a journey full of love and joy. The Heavenly Parents Holy Community is meeting a new era with a new resolution and a new determination. After the cosmic ascension of our True Father, True Mother, and the international headquarters centered on the mission fields have been advancing the providence to create a new environment, put new wine into new wineskins, as we experience the dawn of the establishment of Jeonnam. In this new spring, Director General Yoon Young-ho of the International Headquarters offered to God this new discussion forum of Hyojong Encounters, which is taking him to different sub-regions of Korea, where he shares talks with leaders and members on the current providence.
매일매일 뼛속까지 사무치게 하늘 부모님을 기쁘게 해드리겠다고, 위로해드리겠다고, 그러한 삶을 살아야 되는 것이 축복받은 자의 도리인데, 여러분만의 축복으로 끝나서는 안 되잖아. 이 나라가 세계 앞에 하늘의 축복을 받은 나라로서 세계 인류를 품을 수 있는 그 열매를 거두는 중심 인물이 되기를 축원한다.
True Mother's love wants to bear fruits by becoming a strong tree with deep roots that can have victory and embrace all of humankind. The love of members and their victory and blessing for the three families is the cornerstone for the establishment of a heavenly unified Korea. True Mother gave flowers to each of the sub-regions and prepared the foundation so they can move forward united as one. As such, True Mother sent director Yoon Young-ho to the fields in hope that we can become brighter and more radiant children. Director Yoon Young-ho, understanding her heart, was humbled and took on this big blessing of true parents to share the heart of Hyojong through these Hyojong encounters.
어머님을 조금 더 가까이에서 배운 그 모습을 진솔하게 제가 증거하는 것이 제가 효자된 도리라고 생각했기 때문에 왔고, 오늘 효정다매라는 이름으로 우리 식구님들을 만나고 저도 부흥되고 부활되고 정말 식구님들을 존경하고 또 어머님 사랑을 전할 수 있는 이 시간이 너무너무 감사합니다.
어머니 왜 이렇게 사랑하십니까? 좀 편하게 사시고 그냥 무시하시고 잊어버리시죠. 그때 어머님이 저한테 주신 말씀이 엄마니까 그것이 어머님의 모습이었어요. 아버님을 우리 통일가를 통일가답게 우리 신정 공동체를 신정답게 그렇게 살아오신 어머님이 해나가시는 거예요. 믿는 그대로 바라보고 믿는 그대로 우리가 느끼고 체험하는 것이 저는 머리로 가는 것이 아니었습니다. 가슴으로 어머님 모시고 저희들이 통일하는 걸 가슴으로 이루고 통일세계를 가슴으로 이룬다면 저는 그 조직이 그 공동체가 그 역사장을 어떻게 합니까? 저는 그것이 우리의 심장권이라고 믿고 우리 한번 해보시죠. 그러려면 충고하자교회장 그 다음에 우리가 가야 될 통일하는 통일세계 교회장 아닙니다. 심장의 공동체 아닙니다. 가슴이 뜨거워야죠. 다시 그 가슴이 뜨거워지는 공동체가 되길 저는 또 아울러 그 역할을 제가 하는 작은 기여를 할 수 있다면 최선을 다하겠습니다.
True Mother emphasized that in order for the community to be happy, we must create a church which we want to go to, not a church which we must go to. These encounters clarify concrete questions, among others, about the qualitative growth of the church through the realization of 43 families, strengthening the blessing brand awareness, training 200,000 members, nurturing future talents in YSP, the Hyojong Cultural Center, and securing a foundation of 100,000 youth. Training pastors, church innovation, and teaching the theory of a heavenly unified Korea was also discussed. For this, the leaders of the international headquarters, community leaders, and family members exchanged views on the development of the providence and the happiness of the community.
FOMB 경기장에서 내려오셔서 축복식을 해야 되는데 그 주인이 엘리베이터를 전기를 블랙아웃 시켜버린 거예요. 140개의 계단을. 근데 그 한 계단 한 계단이 7년 노정 같기도 했고 7년 노정에 하루하루 왔기도 했고 6, 7년 하루하루 왔기도 했습니다. 내 성체가 한 발짝도 내디딜 수 없는 상황이었지만 나는 가야만 했고 나는 보여줘야만 했고 나는 기적을 만들어야만 했다. 망망대해 돛담배에 홀로 떠있는 같은 심정이었지만 나는 하늘 부모님과 참 아버님과의 약속을 지켜야 한다. 그게 어머님의 심정입니다. 그리고 그걸 매듭짓고 새날을 맞고 그리고 어머님의 그 말은 고맙다. 참 고맙다. 너희들을 믿는다. 너희들이 천보고 너희들이 천보로서 걸어가는 길이 하늘 부모님이 처음 만드신 길이다. 내가 너희를 믿겠다. 그것이 지금 천보 가정교회 성령입니다.
The blessed families united with True Mother are experiencing a greater bond of heart and connection of greater filial piety. After witnessing the Chonbo Education Center transfer ceremony, acknowledging pastors that succeeded in bringing 43 families to the movement through the Chonbo path and meditation in search of true happiness, together we enjoy the providence of a new spring.
효정담회 이런 아름다운 용어를 저희들이 접할 수 있어서 참 행복한 시간이 아니었나 이렇게 생각이 되어집니다.
축복 가정으로서 효정의 심정으로 참어머님의 후원과 기대에 부응할 수 있어서 참 행복합니다.
섭리를 진행하시는 그 정성의 부분을 깊게 들을 수 있어서 저는 너무 감동이었고요. 앞으로도 어머님에 대한 그 고생의 일부분을 제가 좀 들어드리기 위해서 제가 사생결단 전력 두고 해야 되겠다는 그런 결의를 하는 그런 귀한 시간이 되었습니다.
A happy community with a filial united heart with love for God. The dream of Heavenly Parent and True Parents that goes beyond race and connects us to the future is starting today as the blessed families of Heavenly Unified Korea move forward, encouraging each other, united and creating strong connections towards a vision of hope for a better tomorrow. The era of Heavenly Parents Holy Community is bringing forth new life. We thank True Parents who have been radiating the culture of heart and filial piety for the joy and happiness of this entire community. Moving forward with conviction on the path of Chombo, we sincerely wish that you'll become heavenly treasures who will inspire the people of the world through a life of true love. With these words, we close this edition. Thank you for joining us, and may God bless you.
Alrighty, so we'll move on to the next stage of our program. So let's all prepare our hearts and minds to receive God's word through our own Reverend John Adamides. So let's welcome him up with a round of applause.
Yes, hello and welcome everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, thank you. As you can see, the title of today's sermon is God Exists, the Reason Why. And in light of our direction to at least inform 1/3 of the population on earth about who our heavenly parents are, about our true parents, this issue about God existence needs to be really clarified. We know that God exists, and what I've put together is actually scientists who have, because Father said that in the future, one day scientists will prove the existence of God, and I went through hundreds of hours of different scientists and professors and that explaining this point of view, not just the point of view, but really explaining that God is the existing. And I've put together a video that explains what this is. And some of the video quality is so-so, but the audio is good. And I want to apologize up front to those people who struggle with English or understanding. These scientists are speaking, and they're speaking about really complex issues, even though artistically we understand about God and we have a relationship to God. And this can equip us with a real deep confidence that God really is there, and people shouldn't be debating about whether he exists or not, but more to do with how we really love one another, how we serve one another, how we express God's love to each other as a family, as a community. So this here is a presentation that I hope you enjoy, and the reason why God exists. And I'll start off with a quote, which is from Exodus 3:14, and we probably know this very well, many of us. So God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So this is just a statement that there's no need for an explanation about God. It's just that we have to recognize that we didn't create ourselves, and therefore the Creator, our Heavenly Parent, is wanting to have a relationship with us, and it's up to us to acknowledge and receive that. And so this is the statement he said, I am, has sent me to you. And so true father and true mother come and they say, look, our Heavenly Parents are here. They have come we have come to explain or clarify the truth that we are created by our Heavenly Parent and we are one family. And so what I have here is as explained by renowned scientists. Some of these people you may recognize, some you may not, and I sort of pieced it together from lots of different things and try to make it a consistent flow. Like I said, I spent, I spent a year developing this. This is something that I worked on before. I've practiced it and even showed it sometimes before, but I've sort of fine-tuned it a bit so that to me, it's irrefutable. I mean, God exists, and even scientists are proving it for us, and they're explaining it. And so this is 22 minutes long, so please watch. Please take notes, and I hope that you're able to understand it. And then after this, I'm going to look at it, this whole thing from a principal point of view in a diagrammatic style. So I'll begin this, so please listen well. Okay.
About 15 billion years ago, there were no stars in the sky. There wasn't even a sky. All that existed was the primordial fireball. Primordial fireball. Primordial fireball. Something happened. In a flash, everything suddenly expanded. This was how it all began. The first moment of existence. What we now call the Big Bang. Big Bang. Big Bang. Big Bang. Big Bang.
At the beginning of the 20th century, scientists believed that the universe had always existed, that matter energy was infinite. It had always been around. The model is called the steady state model, because the model of the universe that it's been around forever basically doesn't change. The universe is steady state. But what happened in the last 100 years is that model has been blown away because of the evidence. Observations now suggest, as you all know, that the universe began some 12 to 15 billion years ago. The first evidence that the universe had a beginning is the expanding universe.
Researchers wanted to believe in a universe that always was and always will be, eternal. But galaxies flying away from each other meant that once, long ago, they were clumped together. It meant something started them moving. The universe had a beginning. Today, it's called the Big Bang Theory.
This was first discovered in 1929 by Edwin Hubble, and it's the first evidence that the universe had a beginning. The second evidence the universe had a beginning is the cosmic background radiation.
The discovery of the cosmic background radiation was a fatal blow to those who wanted to believe in an eternal universe. The Big Bang proponents had won.
Now, the final evidence for the origin of the universe is the relative abundance of light elements. It's very clear now that the universe had an origin, and scientists have become to accept this. In fact, the equations of general relativity that Einstein developed had an origin of the universe. When Einstein developed his equations of general relativity, they showed that there should be an expansion of the universe and an origin, and Einstein didn't like that. He added something called a cosmological constant, which he later realized was not there. When we saw that the universe was expanding, that there really was an origin, he threw out the cosmological constant. He said that that was the biggest mistake of his scientific career, was introducing that, was introducing that, was introducing that, was introducing that, was introducing. But when this Big Bang model was first proposed in the early part of the 20th century, it was received with great skepticism by the scientific community. Because the scientific community knew that the Big Bang opened up the possibility of having a beginning and a creator and someone who began it.
Have you ever asked yourself where the universe came from? Why everything exists instead of just nothing? Typically, atheists have said that the universe is just eternal and uncaused.
For example, Bertrand Russell, the famous atheist on a radio program, he said the universe is just there and that's all.
But the astrophysical evidence indicates that the universe began to exist in a great explosion called the Big Bang 15 billion years ago. Most laymen do not appreciate that not only were all matter and energy created in that event, but physical space and time themselves. This is of utmost importance, for it implies, as the Cambridge astronomer Fred Hoyle points out, that the Big Bang theory requires the creation of the universe from nothing. Now, this tends to be very awkward for the atheist, for as Anthony Kenny of Oxford University urges, a proponent of the Big Bang theory, at least if he is an atheist, must believe that the universe came from nothing and by nothing. But surely that doesn't make sense. Out of nothing, nothing comes.
Even atheist philosophers such as David Hume, he wrote in a letter, "I never asserted to absurd proposition as that anything might arise without a cause." Similarly, P.J. Zort, in his publication About Time, said, "If there is anything we find inconceivable, it is that something could arise from nothing."
So where did the universe come from? Why does the universe exist instead of just nothing? There must have been a cause which brought the universe into being. We can summarize our argument thus far as follows. Premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. 3, therefore, the universe has a cause.
It doesn't mean it's God, doesn't mean it's Jesus, doesn't mean it's Allah, it doesn't mean anything. It just means there's a cause for the universe. So we ask another question, what is the nature of this cause? And the nature of this cause, upon conceptual analysis, which means critical thinking about this cause, we come to some startling conclusions.
So the cause of the universe must be immaterial beyond space and time. Beyond space and time. Now there are only two things that can fit in this category. The first, abstract objects, and the second, an embodied mind.
So we're faced with two worldviews. One starts in the beginning with mass energy, the particles, and everything is derivative, including information. The other says the exact opposite, says the exact opposite, says the exact opposite, says the exact opposite. So in the first worldview, mass energy is primary and mind is derivative. In the other worldview, mind is primary and mass energy is derivative, is derivative, is derivative, is derivative. And so far as tonight's lecture is concerned, it is the diametrical opposition between the worldview of materialism and the worldview of theism. It is a conflict between these two worldviews, but I want you to notice there are scientists on each side of it.
Now, what's the better candidate? Now, abstract objects, the problem with these abstract objects is they're causally effete, meaning they can't cause anything. Like, for example, the number 1 can't cause anything.
The simple law of arithmetic, 1 + 1 = 2, never brought anything into being. I wish it did. It never has put any money into my bank account. If I put £1,000 into the bank today and later another £1,000, the laws of arithmetic will rationally explain how it is that I now have £2,000 in the bank. But if I never put any money into the bank myself and simply leave it to the laws of arithmetic to bring money into being, I shall be permanently bankrupt. C.S. Lewis, with usual brilliance, grasped this years ago. The laws of nature produce no events. They state the pattern to which every event, if only it can be induced to happen, must conform. Just as the rules of arithmetic state the pattern to which all transactions with money must conform, if only you can get a hold of any money. Thus, in one sense, the laws of nature cover the whole field of space and time. In another, what they leave out is precisely the whole real universe. The incessant torrent of actual events, which makes up true history, that must come from somewhere else. To think the laws can produce it is like thinking that you can create real money by simply doing sums. For every law says in the last resort, if you have A, then you will get B. But first catch your A. The laws will not do it for you. Now, scientists love developing theories involving mathematical laws to describe natural phenomena, which enable them to make predictions, and they've done it with spectacular success. But most are aware, I think, that on their own the theories and laws that they find cannot create anything, let alone a universe. Yet Hawking seems to think they did.
Professor Stephen Hawking says that modern science has established there was no need for God in the creation of the universe. In a new book, Hawking suggests that a theoretical framework known as M-theory can explain how the Big Bang was an inevitable consequence of the laws of physics.
According to him, it is the laws of physics, not the will of God, that provide the real explanation as to how the universe came into being. The Big Bang, he argues, was the inevitable consequence of these laws. I quote, "Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing." Now, a supernatural being, or God, is an agent who does something. Dismissing such an agent, Hawking ascribes creative power to physical law. But physical law is not an agent. Hawking, it seems to me, is making a classical category mistake by confusing two entirely different kinds of entity, physical law and personal agency. Our physical laws are a description, usually mathematical, of what normally happens under certain given conditions. This is surely obvious from the very first example that Hawking gives in his book. The sun rises in the east. But this law does not create the sun, nor the planet Earth with east and west. It is descriptive and predictive, but not creative. Similarly, Newton's laws of gravitation doesn't create gravity or the manner in which gravity acts. In fact, it doesn't even explain gravity, as Newton himself realized. But it's even worse. The laws of physics cannot even cause anything to happen. Newton's celebrated laws of motion never caused a pool ball to race across the table. That can only be done by people using a pool cue and the action of their muscles. Suppose, to make matters clearer, we replace the universe by a jet engine, and we are asked to explain it. Shall we account for it by mentioning the personal agency of its inventor, Sir Frank Whittle? Or shall we, following Hawking, dismiss personal agency and explain the jet engine by saying it arose naturally from physical law? Now, this would be absurd. It is obvious we need both levels of explanation in order to give a complete description. It is also obvious that the scientific explanation neither conflicts nor competes with the agent explanation. They complement one another. It is the same with explanations of the universe. God does not conflict or compete with the laws of physics as an explanation. God is actually the ground of all explanation, in the sense that he is the ultimate cause in the first place of there being a world for the laws of physics to describe. Now, there's more to this, because the laws of physics can explain how the jet engine works, but not how it came to exist in the first place. Jet engine needed the intelligence and creative engineering work of Whittle. Indeed, come to think of it, the laws of physics plus Frank Whittle could not actually produce a jet engine on their own. There also needed to be some material subject to those laws that could be worked on by Whittle. Matter, ladies and gentlemen, may be humble stuff, but it is not produced by laws. I submit to you that the world of strict naturalism, in which clever mathematical laws all by themselves bring the universe and life into existence, is pure science fiction. Pure science fiction. Pure science fiction. Now, Hawking here echoes Peter Atkins, a colleague at Oxford, a well-known atheist who believes that space-time generates its own dust in the process of its own self-assembly. Atkins dubs this the cosmic bootstrap principle, referring to the self-contradictory idea of a person lifting himself by pulling on his own bootlaces. Philosopher of religion Keith Ward is surely right to say that Atkins' view of the universe is as blatantly self-contradictory as the name he gives to it, pointing out that it is logically impossible for a cause to bring about some effect without already being in existence. Ward concludes, between the hypothesis of God and the hypothesis of a cosmic bootstrap, there's no competition. There's no competition. There's no competition. We were always right to think that persons or universes who seek to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps are forever doomed to failure. What perhaps all this goes to show is that nonsense remains nonsense even when talked by world-famous scientists.
So the only alternative is an embodied mind, what theists call God. An embodied mind, immaterial, outside time and space.
So there's a God. Then you have to say, but sorry, where did God come from? It's not a question I hear often answered.
In order to recognize that an explanation is the best, you don't have to have an explanation of the explanation. In order to recognize that an explanation is the best, you don't have to be able to explain the explanation. Folks, this is an elementary point in the philosophy of science. Suppose astronauts were to find on the backside of the moon a pile of machinery there that had not been left by American or Russian cosmonauts. What would be the best explanation for that machinery? Well, clearly it would be some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence that had left the machinery there. And you don't have to have an explanation of who these extraterrestrials were or came from or how they got there or anything of that sort in order to recognize that the best explanation of this machinery is intelligent design. In order to recognize an explanation as the best, you don't have to have an explanation of the explanation. In fact, when you think about it, requiring that would immediately lead to an infinite regress of explanations. You would need an explanation of the explanation, but in order to recognize that as best, you need an explanation of the explanation of the explanation, and then an explanation of the explanation of the explanation of the explanation, and so that nothing could ever be explained.
One of the outdated philosophical cliches, in my opinion, is that, well, who created God? We hear that all the time, and they think it's a baseball bat against the theists. But it's made of sponge. And let me tell you why. If we say, what caused the cause that caused the universe, then let's continue. What caused the cause that caused the cause that caused the universe? Let's continue. Then what caused the cause that caused the cause that caused the cause that caused the universe? Let's carry on. Then what caused the cause that caused the cause that caused the cause that caused?
And that goes on and on and on backwards. But at one point, I have to have an uncaused cause, or there would be nothing in existence today. Think of a string of dominoes. You have a domino that knocks over a domino that knocks over a domino. I have to have a first domino, or that string of falling could never start.
So in essence, to claim who created God or what caused the cause of the universe is equivalent of saying that we don't have a universe, that we don't have a universe, that we don't have a universe.
Remember the premises of the argument I gave. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Something cannot come into being out of nothing. But if something is eternal and timeless, then it doesn't fall under that first premise. It doesn't need a cause. And the concept of God is the concept of an eternal, self-existent, necessary being, and therefore the answer is simply that God is uncaused. He is self-existent.
Dear Dr. Craig, one of the objections which has been raised is the first law of thermodynamics, the rule that matter and energy can only be rearranged, or in other words, that matter is neither being created nor destroyed.
Yeah. What's funny about this objection is that this is not an objection to the existence of God. This would be an objection to the Big Bang theory of the origin of the universe. It would show that the Big Bang theory of the origin of the universe is false because according to that theory, all matter and energy, even space and time themselves, came into being at the moment of the Big Bang and are therefore not eternal. They haven't always been there in the past. So if these fellows were right, all contemporary cosmologists who believe in the Big Bang theory of the origin of the universe would be contradicting the laws of thermodynamics, and that's hardly the case. Why? Well, because the laws of thermodynamics, in particular the law of the conservation of matter and energy, only applies once the universe comes into being. It applies at every moment, at every time, and every point in the universe. But it doesn't apply to the origin of the universe itself. And that's why cosmologists don't consider that the law of conservation of energy and mass is violated by the Big Bang theory of the origin of the universe. In fact, the atheist fellow mentioned the laws of thermodynamics. He might have wanted to talk about the second law of thermodynamics, which says that in a closed system, things tend toward increasing disorder. Now, the universe on the atheistic view is just a gigantic closed system because it is everything there is and there's nothing outside it. And what that implies is that given sufficient time, everything in the universe would grind down to a state of maximum disorder. So if the universe has existed for infinite time from eternity past, why is it that we don't find ourselves in this sort of thermodynamically disordered state? I think that the best answer to that is that the universe has not existed forever. It began a finite time ago in a low entropy condition, and the thermodynamic clock has been running ever since then. So the evidence of thermodynamics itself suggests that the universe and matter and energy are not infinite or eternal in the past, but had an absolute beginning.
To remind ourselves of the argument again, we have premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2, the universe began to exist. And from that, we draw the conclusion that the universe had a cause. The universe had a cause. The universe had a cause.
So we ask another question: what is the nature of this cause? And the nature of this cause, upon conceptual analysis, which means critical thinking about this cause, we come to some startling conclusions. This cause must be one. The reason for this is because if we use the philosophical principle Occam's razor, which posits that we do not multiply entities beyond necessity, then we conclude it must be one. This cause must be uncaused, as we have already discussed the absurdity of an infinite regress of events, similarly with causes. This cause must be immaterial, because it created the sum of all matter, which is the universe itself. Significantly, brothers, sisters, and friends, this cause must be personal. The reason I'm saying this is how else can an eternal cause bring into an existence a finite effect, the universe that had a beginning in time? It must have chosen the universe to come into existence, and choice indicates a will, and a will indicates a personality. So, we have concluded the traditional view on God, that a transcendental, immaterial, uncaused, eternal being exists. Being exists. Being exists.
Yep. So God exists. So I hope you're able to understand all of that and understand a lot of the reasoning behind it. And basically they are giving a point of view that clearly shows that God exists. And God exists as the original cause. And they talk about these different things. They talk about, you know, there's time and space, and then God is outside of time and space, and God is outside of that in nothing. So what I want to do now is look at this from a principled perspective. And so I'm going to do this diagrammatically and show some things. So we have God who created everything. And this we know, God created the visible physical world, this substantial world in which we find ourselves. And this world, as we know, has time. And this time is interesting. It's a linear in cycle. In other words, we go through a life cycle, birth to death, and that repeats itself. But it's linear in the sense that for me and you, we get born, we die, we start from age 0 and we die at whatever age we reach, 80, 90, 100. But that's for us a linear time. And through that time, we go through that in this space that we find ourselves. And this is a solid 3D world. You know, we got depth, we got height, we got width. So this is the world that we find ourselves. This is the physical world. And this physical world depends on growth. And so we go through linear time from birth to death through this growth period from our embryo to our adult. This is, everything's in the principle. This is what we're following. We're following the laws. Remember, they said that the laws themselves aren't creative. They just describe the events that happen, and scientists have unlocked and revealed and discovered these laws. And Hawkins is trying to say that the laws is what created everything. But what the other scientists are saying is that, well, no, the laws are there and yes, they work, but there needs to be action from something to apply the laws so that things are created. So we grow. And so we're in this situation, in this physical realm where things happen at light speed. And so this is the confines of it. You know, they don't know what happens when you go past the speed of light, but that's where we are. And this is our current real reality of our existence. And this is what everything experiences. This is the visible world that we find ourselves. But God created that. But before creating that, he created the other world. He created the invisible spiritual dimension. You know, the physical world has 3D. The spiritual dimension is the 4th dimension of our existence. We have a spirit that's eternal. And the thing that's unique about this area is there is no time. There's no time. There's also no space. So this is sort of like, wow, we've left something that confines us and we're stuck. Now we're in a place where there's no time, no space, we can't see anything, and also there's no growth. We are just where we are. Yeah, and that's why Father says, and you know, we have to grow to maturity here. So when we go to the spirit world, we can be a mature person. We have to create the kingdom of heaven here, the Chongalguk nation here, so that we are in it. Because when we go to the next world, we are where we are. So that's why, you know, people judge themselves. When we go to the spirit world, depending on where you are at, that's where you will be. And there's no time, no space. And the speed there is spirit speed. In other words, I'm saying that this speed is a lot faster. If the speed of light is, you know, hundreds of thousands of kilometers an hour, the spirit speed's much, much faster. And the thing about physics is that the faster an object moves, the more dense it is, the more real it is. So the spirit world is actually more real and more substantial, even though we can't see it. It's because it's traveling faster. but there's no time or space, which means there's no limitations. We're not stuck in a box. We're in a situation that is all embracing, where everyone is together. And so when we look at God, which is outside of this, we have God, okay? And God, they said, well, you know, it came from nothing. But what I'm also saying is that nothing is everything, because you can't have nothing without something allowing nothing to be nothing. Yet God is the composite of everything that there is. So nothing and everything is the same. And then God himself is nothing and everything at the same time. And then God goes on to be moving at instant speed. Instead of some passage happening, things are happening instantaneously. Once you think it, it appears. Once God manifested his love, it generates everything. So it comes from, as we know from the principle, from the heart and love of God. God, from his purpose, as the scientist said, is chose to create, and chose to create the laws that everything is governed by, decided that I need a family to embrace. So he created a system where love, life, and lineage goes in a circular movement, going from love to life to lineage and repeating itself. And this is what results as what we regard as good, because God is only good, and the world he created is only good, and it is created on the premise of giving everything for the created object. God poured out his entire self in creation, and everything, you know, in the Bible he created is good, and the purpose of which was to embrace the family, to create the family, because God wants to love. So God is outside of this, and the end result, if it's all done correctly, it's a world of joy. It's a kingdom of heaven. It's God's ideal. And at the center of all of this is God himself. God manifests in everything, in the visible world, in the invisible world, and in outside that, and in the presence of God himself. So God is a reality. God is true and existing. And all we are doing is describing the fact that God, out of his heart of love, out of the need to embrace his family, out of the need to express joy, to give to his object, that everything else is the object. And we shouldn't go around trying to argue whether there's God or not. I mean, God exists because we're here. It's as simple as that. And so this here is my idea of a whole principle in a nutshell, and putting it into perspective. You know, the visible world is a subset of the invisible world, which is a subset of God, which is everything at the same time expressed, you know, with the motivation of heart and love. So to answer really, really simply, and going actually right back to the Bible quote, I am that I am, and tell the people that I am, because you don't need to explain the reason why, because that's the best explanation, as the scientists are explaining. So to answer that, God exists, the reason why, because he does. Because if he didn't exist, we would not be here. And in fact, we are the proof of it. We are the proof of the fact that God exists. And as you can see there, there's all our blessed second gen there together. And look at everything around. There's all of us. There's all, Sydney Harbour there, and everything is an extension of us, which is an extension of God. So to say it again, to answer God exists, the reason why, because he does. And we are the proof of it, because we are here. And we don't need to try to justify it. It's the fact that we're here is already the proof. And so that's what I wanted to explain. That's what I hope you can catch and grasp. Yeah, God really does exist, and always has and always will. and put into motion the fact that we are eternal. The origin of the universe began because it was created, and the origin of each and every one of us is eternal because we were created. We came from our parents, who is God, ultimately our parents. And so that seed grows and then grows for eternity. And we pass through those different stages. We pass through the stage of the physical, and then we enter the spiritual. And that spiritual dimension is where we last for all eternity, and there is the opportunity within that spiritual dimension to have that moments of oneness with God, where we can even disappear inside that oneness of God and be a part of everything at the same time. But we are eternal, just as God is. And so we are born from God and we return back to God, and that we are one family together. And I hope that this really clarifies things to you and helps you feel confident that it's easy to explain to people that God exists, and that many scientists agree that God exists, and that the Big Bang itself proves that there is an origin, because that's what it is. And that origin, they said, comes from nothing. But what I'm explaining is that nothing is everything, and that nothing is God, the cause that is uncaused, that brought about everything where it is together. So I hope that's okay for you. And I want to just leave you with those thoughts and to think. And so thank you, and God bless, and may you really experience the joy and love of God, that we are one family and we are connected, and it's up to us to love each other and to finish our growth, because the purpose of our life on earth is to grow to perfection, so that when we enter the spirit world where the growth ceases, we're supposed to be already completed. And so let's not fall into the consequence of returning resurrection to complete what we didn't finish. Let's help each other to achieve Chongyul Guk now, as our true mother is wanting us to achieve Chongyul Guk right now. And that's why North and South Korea will become unified, and that's why the world will have a nation of Chongyul Guk, and that's why blessed families will finally realize the three blessings in their lifetime. And this will occur. I hope that each and every one of us are able to do it, and that we can enter the spirit world with absolute commitment, absolute success, and absolute joy. So thank you, and God bless you. And that's it. Thanks very much. Just close it.
Thank you so much, Reverend John. Let's give another round of applause. That was absolutely amazing. Yeah, just really interesting how science is there to prove God's existence, and definitely something I can speak on behalf of all the second gen. We don't really learn in the school system. It's definitely from a more atheistic viewpoint. So it's very comforting to know that our belief in God is not, it's not, how do I say, it's like it's justified and it's the truth. Yeah, so it's amazing. Thank you so much. And let's join Reverend John in benediction prayer.
Okay, just join me in prayer. Okay, dear Heavenly Parents, we're very grateful that we can come together this Sunday together as a community all around Australia and even Oceania, because this is a great opportunity that we have to express our love as a family, not just only to us, but to return it back to you, to our Heavenly Parent. You truly are a living God, a God that really is concerned about each and every one of us, that you personally chose our existence. It's not a random event. Each and every one of us is unique and absolute and eternal, and our character and nature comes directly from you, our Heavenly Parent, and you decided that we were born. And because of that, we are so grateful, and that we are actually awestruck. And the more that we become aware that this is true and it's a reality. The more that we are grateful and humbled by the enormity of your scope and your love and your desire, and how that we are just the one step in the multiplication, because you said to Adam and Eve to multiply. You said to Adam and Eve to fill the earth and to subdue it. And this is still us. We will have our family, and our family will have their family, and that this really does create the kingdom of heaven, a world of peace and harmony and of love. So we ask that we can have the confidence to go out to testify about you, our Heavenly Parent, and to testify about our true parents, because our true parents is the pathway for the change of lineage, where we can move out of the fallen satanic lineage that was created from selfishness and separation from you, and back into the original plan and desire, where we are one family, and that we generate a pure lineage where people live in peace and harmony, and that conflict is resolved within the family. So we ask that your blessing can really manifest in us, and then use us as an instrument to give your blessing to everyone else. So we ask that this is really a task that we will succeed, and that at every opportunity we can testify to you. So thank you for your guidance, and I pray that each and every one of us really feels the joy and feels the appreciation and really wants to return it back to you. We're happy to gather here together, and we report and offer you this in our names, John and Shizia and Reza, blessed central family. Arju. Thank you.
Thank you, Rev J. So we'll move on to our closing song, and this will be sung by the lovely you girls, Youngmin, Wanjiang, and Yangsan. So let's all sing together at home. Girls, that was very nice. What a talented bunch. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the announcements. Okay, so June birthdays. I guess I can read them all out. So Auntie Kumsuk on the 1st of June, Ayami on the 3rd, Yuka on the 5th, Auntie Misako and Yasu on the 7th, Mei Kobayashi, Kayomi and Kenmei's newborn on the 8th, Paul, Uncle Paul on the 10th, Sean also on the 10th, Auntie Michio and Anita on the 11th, Auntie Katrine and Uncle Suntek on the 15th, Auntie Leonie on the 18th, Minori and Sunshin on the 26th, Thomas Ahn also on the 26th, and Felician Moi on the 30th of June. So happy birthday. Oh, okay, there's more. July birthdays. So Raphael on the 3rd and Ahjong, Uncle Chihiro and Mihua on the 8th of July, Uncle Kijiro on the 10th, Heaven on the 17th of July, Auntie Debbie on the 19th. Oh, and my dad, Ian, on the 19th, Taekwon on the 22nd, Hong Soo Park on the 23rd, Uncle Nick on the 26th, and Tokushin Tanaka also on the 26th of July. So happy birthday to all our June and July birthdays. Yes. And with that, can conclude this week's Sunday service. So thank you everyone for joining and have a blessed week.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. So cute to see.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good to see everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye, Sarah.
What are you doing?